Okay, we are recording. Kev Sherry, how are you today?
I'm great. I'm great. It's great to be here.
Wonderful. We've just been chatting, and I was like, "Hang on a minute, hang on a minute. I'm going to press record, so I want to capture this on the chat because I've received your tracks a few days ago, and I promise you, I don't say this to every guest, and I've done over 550 of these shows now. But when I got your list through, I thought, "Oh, this is a bit of me. This is," and I was really excited to talk about it. And then you sort of started. I'll let you carry on with what you were saying about your song picks.
Yeah, I mean, so it's very hard to do that because, as a music lover like yourself, probably it's just like, how do you nail this down? But as I'm doing it, and I think you probably see that from the first few songs I've chosen, that my wife is always berating me for being pretty much a sort of like white boy indie kid. Um, but in my head, I'm like, because I love soul and Motown and stuff, and I love pop. So in my head, I'm like, I've got an incredibly expansive taste in music. Except, I get my Spotify rap through, and it's like your top artists: Neil Young, Van Morrison, Teenage Fan Club, and I'm like, oh my God, I need to broaden my horizons.
Oh, wonderful. Well, look, I'll tell you what. Let's just jump straight in, and I'm going to ask you for track one. I mean, it doesn't get any more indie than this. To tell me the song that you regard as having the greatest ever intro, please.
So that would be Teenage Fan Club's The Concept, which is the opening track of their breakthrough album Bandwagon-esque. And I did kind of struggle trying to choose, what song, and I actually went for just the lyrical couplet that opens it because it's just tremendous. It's she wears denim wherever she goes, says she's going to get some records from the status quo, which, you know, I suppose if you come from Glasgow and you're of a certain age, the fan club are kind of gods to
Yeah.
you, and it's sort of equally sort of nostalgic for me because those guys, that whole scene of like fan club and BMX Bandits and the Vaselines and Bell and Sebastian, they were really supportive to us in my first band called Attic Lights when we were coming up. And we sort of became friendly with them, and especially with Douglas T. Stewart from the BMX Bandits, who is an incredible guy, and he's like almost the godfather of the whole indie scene in Glasgow. And he really, in fact, he gave us, I just remember this, he gave us our first ever professional recording
Oh,
job.
really?
Yeah, I don't know how this slipped out of my mind. I've forgot about this for years. Um, Douglas was really supportive of us, and got his gigs, and talked about us in the press and stuff. And then he was recording a BMX Bandits album called, what was it called? My Chain. And he wanted a backing band for a cover he was doing on it. And we ended up covering Hopelessly Devoted to You, the Grease song.
Of course, and I know that version of it.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Ah, so we're the backing band on that.
Wow.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
is
yeah.
also one of the best songs ever, Hopelessly Devoted to
Oh,
You.
yeah.
It's a masterpiece of a song, that.
It's tremendous. It's tremendous. And we like, I think one of the reasons they asked us because our shtick in Attic Lights was like four-part harmony. So we got to do all of that, and it was the first time we were in like a proper recording studio, and it was a great buzz, man. And yeah, and I'm gonna have to message Douglas and just see how he's doing because that's yeah. There you
How was
go.
that to grow up listening to like Fannies and BMX Bandits and you said Bell and Sebastian and such and these people that when we look up to Scotland from down here and you look at these the people that shaped that scene, they're the bands that everybody's talking about. And from my southern little mind, I presume that there's these like little kind of venues and there's everybody knows everybody, and it's a pretty helpful little scene. Is that about right?
Yeah, I mean, we're going back what
I'm going through rose
20
tinted
years.
glasses here,
Yeah, I mean
but
for us that was like going on 20 years ago when Attic Lights were kind of kicking off. But it felt really. I guess when you're sort of on the outside looking in, you get a bit kind of jealous, and you're like, how did I get into that? But then as soon as you meet people and they like your music and they just welcome you in, and it's great. I remember like Norman from TFC coming down and doing a DJ set after one of our gigs, and and you'd bump into like guys from Bell and Sebastian and Eugene from the Vaselines, and they were just always really, really nice. And so you'd
Yeah.
be kind of, you'd be like, you didn't in the rehearsal space in Glasgow, and you'd maybe bump into one of them, have a chat, and you come back to the band. It's like, it's Eugene from the Vaselines out there, you know? Like, because you can't not be a fan, because
Yeah.
they just, the imprint of what they did, I think pretty much defines how Scottish music is maybe now seen.
And the very reason I set this podcast up years and years and years ago was I've got a mate I've worked with on for years and years, which is a picture of him behind me there. He's a former musician called Scroobius Pip, and
Oh yeah.
I was chatting to Pip a lot around the time that he was sort of really blowing up in what he was doing, and he said, like, so many people say to me, "Oh, do you live in London?" And he's like, "No, no, I live in Essex, which is where I'm from." Um, and just to point out as well, I've been on a holiday. This isn't an Essex tan that
Ah.
everybody thinks you should have. I've just got back from my holiday. I'm not sporting an Essex look there. um, but Pip was said that people are always like, "Oh, what? But you haven't moved to London yet?" And he's like, "No, what? I don't want to move to London. I like where I am." And so that made me kind of set this pod up through conversations with artists that you know didn't make that move to, oh, you've got to move to London if you want to make it in music or acting or whatever. And is it important in Scotland to have what you had there, to go, look, we don't have to go anywhere. We have got our own scene. We have got something so inspiring and powerful, and people are looking up here for something. Because you didn't ever feel like you had to relocate anywhere to have a crack at the industry. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, we did consider it at one point. I think just after we signed to Ireland, and we were kind of like, the actions. There is more action down there, and London's an exciting place. So we did think, man, maybe we should just go down, and then we can like spread the word a little bit more. And maybe in retrospect we should have done that, but maybe we were a bit young and arrogant, and because our sort of way to get signed was like, let's make them come to us, because
Yeah,
you go cap in hand, everyone's going cap in hand, so we just tried to make a fuss, and maybe, yeah, I mean, I guess a few of the guys in the band had long-term relationships, so that would have meant upending other people, so we eventually didn't, and it probably wouldn't have made much difference either way, to be honest, because an indie band like us on Island was an odd fit,
yeah,
but yeah, I mean, I do love Glasgow, but I'm very loath to do that thing, of that sort of tribalist thing of, like, this our city's the best, and because look what's come out of London, look
yeah,
what's
of
come out
course.
of like all the other cities in the UK.
Yeah,
So, but yeah, it kind of blows my mind when you think about all the bands that come out of Glasgow and Scotland or whatever, and then you think about all the bands that come out of the UK with the size of our population. It's just astonishing.
yeah,
So I'm
absolutely.
rambling. I went in a ramble off topic there.
Oh, that's the best thing about podcasts. That's the best thing. It's a safe space for all of that. Well, look, let's get another track going, and I'm going to ask you to tell me the first song that you remember, Kev, that had an emotional impact on you, please.
Yeah, so that would be, it was an easy one. That's This Must Be the Place, Naive Melody by Talking Heads. Um, because yeah, I mean, it's maybe their greatest song, and I grew up. My mum played Talking Heads constantly in the house because my mum is David's cousin, and so he would like send all the new
Whoa,
records.
whoa, 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 whoa! Hang on a minute. Let's not just go past that.
Sorry.
So, did you just say your mum is David Byrne's cousin?
Yeah, yeah,
Fuck!
yeah.
Wow.
It's it's something I never ever talked about when we first had a record deal, because I didn't want it to be like a taking advantage kind of thing.
Yeah,
But so yeah, so David was born in Dumbarton, where my mum was born, just outside of Glasgow, and they were born in the same year. And their parents were fathers were brothers. And then my Uncle Tommy moved his family to Canada and then the States. But so David would always send every Talking Heads album, every solo album would be sent over. So we had all the vinyl in the house. So it was just in the background constantly, growing up. So, and that's maybe their catchiest pop song or the most one with that sort of melancholic beauty to it.
Mm,
So I just love it, and it reminds me of like home and a secure environment and cleaning the house on Saturday mornings basically because that's
mm.
the my mum would stick on the records and just start cleaning the house and when when my mum died about 10 years ago and David sent a little email to me just saying how sorry he was, etc. So I sent him a message back just saying no thanks and we grew up listening to Talking Heads while we were cleaning the house on Saturday mornings. And he replied saying that's weird because Brian Eno used to always tell me that Talking Heads was hoovering music.
That's
I know
fantastic.
it's such a bizarre thing. Um, but yeah, so that's that thing. I mean, I don't know David that well. Like when he comes to play here, he'll get his free passes, and then if I'm like in New York, I maybe meet for dinner. I wouldn't. I don't. He's a relative who I kind of know, but don't
Yeah,
know in a
yeah, yeah,
way,
yeah.
you
Still very cool though.
know. I know it's a strange one, but again, I was very wary of like mentioning that until a few years ago,
Yeah,
just because I just didn't want to cling on someone else's coattails, you know.
yeah, yeah. Of course. I mean, you mentioned that your mum would have Talking Heads on in the house because you're getting free records sent from the man himself,
Yeah.
which is always nice. But what other music was being played at home growing up? What other stuff was you sort of being exposed to?
It was kind of a mixture of, so my parents were kind of kids of like the 60s and 70s, so it was just like my dad's a Beach Boys and Beatles nut, so it was just constant Beach Boys, constant Beatles, and mom really liked Neil Young and Crosby, Stills and Nash. So it was all that kind of thing. But then I guess because of the Talking Heads influence, they probably because I know people of a certain age maybe at that time stopped listening to new music, but they kept listening. So they were like listening to like Eurythmics and Lloyd Cole and stuff like
Yeah,
that. So I remember a lot of that being played.
yeah. Okay. Well, let's stay in the formative years. And for track three, I'm going to ask you, please, Kev, to tell me the song that reminds you of your time at school.
It is Girls and Boys by Blur.
Mm,
Um, I guess because I had to have a little think about that. But that's when I remember just everything getting really exciting. Because like I was young when grunge was out, but I was kind of into it. But then I remember Girls and Boys just sounding like the most odd thing I'd ever heard, and
yeah,
it was just kind of exciting and weird. And I actually always see it as that like so this movement, or I guess Britpop's the term for it, but and I was like maybe like 15 or something when that really
yeah,
kicked off, and it's so exciting. But and this is a strange analogy to make. So my daughter's just about to turn 2. And the songs that she really likes me playing the guitar just so she can dance it is really early rock and roll, like Tutti Frutti, rock and roll music, Jackie Wilson, Reed Petite, and stuff like
yeah,
that. Because they're so simple, but they're just they've got that fresh, youthful energy to them.
yeah,
And I think that era of when something starts, like a movement, like when Blur came in with Girls and Boys, even though they've been around for a few years, and all the other stuff that was kicking off, it was just really vibrant. And then clicked a few years and everyone's making their serious albums like, OK Computer and
yeah,
Urban Hymns or whatever. And it loses something. And so whenever I'm trying to feel that bang of excitement again, I don't want to go to the mature stuff. I want to go to Girls and Boys or Tutti Frutti
yeah,
because it may not be, viewed in this is serious art, but it's rock and roll. It's I want to hold your hand. It's just that
yeah.
bang thing.
I think that's absolutely bang on, and also girls and boys. I'm older than you, Kev, and I was probably around about 1920 when if we're going to call it Britpop, happened. Like and it felt so vibrant and so exciting. Girls and Boys didn't sound like anything Blur had done either at
Mm.
that point. It still doesn't sound like anything else Blur have done. It's quite a strange. record, girls and boys. But at that point, when you look at the music Pulp was making, it was like joyous, energetic pop, and and I guess a lot of the bands that I don't know never really kind of hit the levels of Blur, Oasis, and Pulp and Suede. You know, your Echo Bellies and your Blue Tones. They were all Shed Seven were banging out these really good little pop gems that just felt like it built a wave of something really exciting, which become coined as Britpop. It was a really I run a venue and I've been there for bloody hell 33 years, and DJing at that point like was so exciting because Britpop all of a sudden all the lads that sort of liked a little bit of guitar music and maybe bought Nevermind 5 years previous, still didn't really like it because they were scruffy blokes. But then all of a sudden, you've got Liam and Damon wearing the, Adidas Gazelles and Adidas tracky tops and, they're talking about fighting and girls and football. All of a sudden, the football terraces started emptying into indie clubs. And before you know it, they're buying Suede records
Yeah.
it just, and at that point, I think artists like Blur and Oasis, like Damon was a pop star then. It had gone from beyond indie. He was he was a pop star. He was like the front of Smash Hits. And I remember I've been watching Blur. Christ, I saw them so much. They're actually the band I've seen the most.
Oh wow, I've never seen them. I've always wanted to.
Really?
Yeah.
They're not even one of my favourite bands, but for some reason, my best mate was obsessed with them. And around the time of like Modern Life, we used to go and watch them all the time.
Wow.
And then seeing them through, Park Life and stuff, and then all of a sudden going to see them at Wembley Arena when The Great Escape come out, and all of a sudden it was just 14-year-old girls screaming. I was like, oh, they're a proper pop band now. They're like, he's a boy band, and it was really weird. And because I think the moment they hit that point, that's when it's like, right, we've now got to make the serious record now.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was an exciting time. Well, I want to just stay on school for a moment, Kev, and tell me a little bit about your experiences with school. Was it something that you enjoyed, and did you know what you wanted to do when you was at school?
Um. Yeah. Did I enjoy it? It's a weird thing. My brothers get kids who are at school now, and they love it. But I don't remember anyone ever loving school. It was just a thing
I
you had to
didn't.
do. It's just like, oh, you have to go there. I
Yeah,
didn't hate it, but I didn't love it either. It was just
yeah,
what I did. And so I think that we're probably in a better world when the kids are like, oh, I love school, you know?
yeah.
But my school was pretty mental. It was a sort of Catholic high school, and because of where it was, it took in. So I'm like kind of middle class kid, my parents are teachers. Um, but it took in from all areas of Glasgow. So it was like I went from like a pretty chilled out primary school to a school with like a lot of working class kids, a lot of kids with problems and poverty. So it was like entering this arena of just absolute mayhem. Um, but because you don't really know any different, you're like, oh, that's what secondary school's like. So it was a bit violent and a bit you sort of learn to look over your shoulder a little bit, but you stick to your own little group. And I guess when I was first in school, I wanted to be a comic writer and comic artist until I really got into music. So and I don't know if you know this, but I went back to that now and started writing comics and managed to get one published by a LA company called Humanoids. And so I'm now like seeing that as there's no money in comics, man. It's like there is nothing. That's just a little labor of love. But so I want to keep that going because it's like touching back to those early years. But by the time I was like 13, I was really into music. So then it was music all the way. I just knew if I only went to uni to, placate my parents because I knew I was going to do music after that.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to ask you to tell me the first record that you remember buying. And before you answer it, I'm going to say that in previous episodes, normally at this point, people have mentioned a couple of songs that are pretty cool. And this is normally the one where they go, yeah, it's a bit embarrassing, this one. But you ain't got that, mate. You have nailed it with this. So yeah, what was the first record you remember buying, Kev?
So I actually answered this in terms of the first single I bought
Yeah,
because,
that's it.
and I wasn't a single buyer. I never bought singles. It was always albums. So the actual first album I bought was years before, and that was a Unforgettable Fire by U2.
I mean, again, still, it's not a howling, it's not an embarrassment, that one, is it? Like, you got great records.
No, but I really wanted to buy the Chicken song, but
There we go.
my parents wouldn't let me. They wouldn't let me. You know, so there was a lot of like, you're not buying Agadoo or things like that.
Yeah.
But so yeah, so the first single I ever bought was Yes by McCalmont and Butler.
I mean, that is as good as it gets, isn't it?
Yeah, to this day, it's one of my all-time favorite songs.
Have you seen, I think it's on YouTube, it was Bernard Butler's birthday, I believe, and there was some sort of tribute type thing for him. I don't know what venue, it looks like the 100 Club or somewhere quite small in London. And the backing band is the Magic Numbers. Uh, and and David McCorman comes on and they perform Yes. Oh, fucking hell. Like, that guy's voice, it's it's I mean, we're going to talk about great vocalists on your last track as well. But David McCormick's voice is sent from the gods. It is heavenly, and that to go from Suede to then going right, I'm going to really get my Phil Spector on here and knock it out of the park with this. I mean, tell me about how you see this song because I think it's a masterpiece.
Yeah. Well, it was being a big Suede fan at the time. That was my entry to it. It was following Bernard Butler, but it still gives me chills. I remember first hearing it. I think I was watching Top of the Pops or something, and it was a jaw drop moment because it just soared with like positivity, and that song opened up soul music to me. It opened up Motown and soul.
Really,
Yeah, and I just did a deep dive into that whole area. Um, but yeah, I remember talking to, like, some of my friends really didn't like it. I think there was maybe a sort of maybe an effeminate quality to it or something that stood against the sort of braggadocio, or what's the word, braggadocio of the sort of that's not the word, but the bravado of this sort of
yeah.
male indie rock. But yeah, just and to this day, I still like, if anyone asks me what my favorite songs are, it's always top three. And I've got such a burning sense of injustice by proxy because by all rights, man, everyone should know this song, and McCalmont and Butler should have went on to become one of the great double acts, and it just didn't happen. And they released like a second album like years later, which was great. It was
Yeah.
actually in the first album, although it didn't have a track as iconic as Yes on it. But yes, I'm quite like, I like to proselytize about this song because I just want people to hear it.
Honestly, I play this like at my club all the time
Oh,
still,
really?
and it's like so I feel like I've just got to bang the drum for it because
Mhm.
it's it is a Be My Baby. It is a perfect pop record, and it is joyous. It's got like everything you should want from a piece of music, and a vocal that is just sublime. And it's like, yeah, I was really lucky. I spoke to David come on the show, and to kind of get him talking about how that record was put together, and just doing a bit of prep for it, and going and watching some of the stuff that he's done since. His voice, it's like, why is he not one of the most famous vocalists in this country? His voice is fucking ridiculous. Yeah, when I see that you're the first person to ever choose this record, and
Oh,
like I
really?
say, I've done
Wow.
exactly. Well, this is why we need to be banging on about it because, like, over 500 episodes in, this is the first time I've got to talk about this record. And like you, when people say, "What's your favorite record?" That's always in the conversation. I'm like, "Have you not heard it?" No. Oh, why have you not heard this? And it's weird because DJing throughout that whole Britpop thing, you'd think how famous that Bernard Butler was at that point, and
Yeah.
how news it was. It was big news when he left Suede, and it was like, so what's he come back with this? And it's like, that's not a limp return. That is like stratospheric,
Yeah.
and yeah, and it just seems to have been kind of forgotten. And yeah,
I,
I
s- I saw an interview with David McCalmont, or maybe I read it. He was talking about when they recorded it, he only had one verse of lyrics. So he just repeated it. And no, and I've never noticed that the first verse lyrics are exactly the same as the second verse lyrics.
Easily, I'd never realised
I
that.
know, I know. But it does it makes it doesn't matter. The song's
Yeah,
so good that it works.
absolutely, absolutely. Okay, right. Let's go clubbing. I'm going to ask you to tell me the song that soundtracked your year's clubbing, please, Kev.
Cool. Yeah. So like I actually did end up being a like, proper clubber with like my pals, but they were all into like really like minimalist German techno and stuff like that. And I'm just a pop kid, so it's Candy Stanton's "You Got the Love," but it's the Now Voyager remix. So
Mm.
I think everyone's familiar with the sort of like ticka 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 kind of the main one. The Now Voyager re
That was the source because they've sampled the um,
uh,
Frankie Knuckles track. Your love,
that's it. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But the Now Voyager remix is just this big loping drum beat and like extra strings on it, and
Mm.
I love it. It just kind of yeah, it was such a great track, and I was really they didn't play it at the clubs that much, but I would you come back and just like and
Yeah.
blast out and drive the upstairs neighbours insane. But I met Candy Staton round about that time, and it was meeting Candy Staton
Can I
is
just say, right, on this show today, I've had guests on that have name dropped, right? You have done
I'm so sorry.
the most humble mentions of artists today. One's been the fact that your uncle is David Byrne, and now you're just going to drop in that you was just hanging out with Candy Staton. And it's so humble, and I'm loving it. Please tell me about this experience.
You may change your mind when you hear this story. The meeting of Candy Staton was the only sane part of the most off the scale batshit story that's ever happened to me.
Right,
Um,
sign me up for this.
so my band Attic Lights have just signed to Island Records with a couple of singles out. It went quite well, and we've been on tour and we're back. And so I'm in at home in my flat in Glasgow. I went to bed on a Saturday night quite early, maybe about like midnight, and I got a phone call from our producer, who lives up in Glasgow. He's like, Kev, you need to come round to my house right now. Now, this story starts off very uncool. Do you remember that guy who married Liza Minnelli, David Guest?
Of course.
Right, yeah. So John, our producer, who's a bit of a, he's a great guy, a bit of a chancer, has met David Guest on a flight, invited him back to his, and they're having a party. And he's like, David's in my recording studio, and he's writing a monologue about Liza Minnelli to narrate over your next single. So I'm like, I, I'm kind of half like awake. What? What? I thought David Guest was someone else. I can't remember who I thought it was. But so I went round to John's and then Colin from the band joined me there. And there's this guy, and I'm like, oh, it's that guy. He's like, he's a dick. You know? Um, and he's in the recording studio recording this monologue, and the whole thing's fucking weird.
His background was he was involved in music, wasn't he?
Yeah, he grew up next to the Jacksons. He was
That's
pals
right.
with
That's
them,
right.
and he married Manelli, and he's a bit of a kind of fame whore type
Yeah.
character. Um, so then he comes out and he's trying to make chat with me, and he's like, "What kind of bands do you like?" So I'm like, I'm going to say something he doesn't know. So I'm like, I really like Big Star, like the kind of American. I don't know how you describe Big Star, power pop
Yeah.
unknowns. And he's like that. Alex is a personal friend of mine. Let's phone him. So
Fuck
he phones,
off. Really?
this is like 4 a.m. So he phones Alex Chilton and just hands the phone to me. And I'm pretty wasted by this point. I'm like, hello? And Alex Chilton's obviously just walking up. He's like, who is this? And I'm like, I love all your songs, September Girls, blah, 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 blah. And then eventually he's like, can you put David back on the phone? So I hand the phone back to David Guest and he chats to him. And then
This
as
is surreal.
I know it gets worse. So as we're leaving, Guest is like, "You got any ecstasy? None of that British shit. I want American ecstasy." And I'm like, I don't know." So I go home, wake up. I think this is the Monday morning. I got a phone call from Louis at a record label, who was an A&R guy. I think he's now head of the island. And he's like, "So what about this David Guest thing?" I'm like, what? He's like, are you releasing this as a single? And I'm like, no. And he's like that. Okay, that's what I wanted to know. Hangs up. Uh, we go on tour, and I get a phone call from David Guest one night. I don't know how he got my number. He's like, Kevin, it's David. I played the song to Michael. He loves it. So I'm like, the fuck's he talking? Oh, he's played the song to Michael Jackson. So I know I'm just kind of like, I don't know what to do with that information because
Jesus Christ.
I know, like, it's just weird. So then our management start calling us, and it sort of becomes apparent that they are going to want to give David Guest what he wants because they're trying to court. We basically looks like Universal via Island are trying to court Michael Jackson. I think Michael Jackson maybe been out of contract or something. I don't know. So we become this little pawn in these tectonic major label plates moving. And like we're like, no, we don't want that will kill our career. We're not releasing that. But like there's this constant pressure. Well, just think about it. Just think about it. So we're in Newcastle, like playing a gig, and I got a phone call from the label saying, can you come down to London just to meet David, just to say hello again? And I'm like, ah, fuck, man. So, and the rest of the band are really annoyed because it's me that's getting the VIP treatment to get the flight down to London. So, so I get flown down and put in this taxi, and to go to this hotel off a Hyde Park somewhere. And I'll just add in that at this point, I used to work for Scottish Television, and before this, and a lot of our pals were like up and coming directors trying to make their bones. So we managed to convince Ireland to let them direct our low budget videos. So like a good school friend of mine was like doing some of our videos. So I arrive at this hotel, go to the door I'm told to go to, knock on it, and there's my school friend Liam who opens the door, who I didn't know was there, and his face looks like he's about to burst. And I'm like, Liam, what the fuck is going on? He leads me into this. This is where it gets crazy. He leads me into this
Yeah,
room.
because this ain't crazy at this point. Fucking hell,
I
man.
know. And I'm introduced in very quick succession to David Guest, a drag queen dressed as Liza Minnelli, Michael Jackson's choreographer, Candy Stanton, Faith Brown, and about 12 little people all running around with t-shirts that say the little people of Davidland or something like that. And everyone's on the Colombian marching powder. Like the room is as high as a kite. And then I can see Sarah from a record label there as well. And I'm looking at Liam and he's looking at me, and we're both like, how the fuck did we get here from 6 year higher history class? I go to this. You know? So like it's chaos. I don't know what's going on. And like the choreographer guy's like, and I want he kind of acts and speaks a bit like Michael Jackson, you know, that kind of very quiet. And he's trying to get everyone to do these dances. And it turns out that Island have told David Guest he can make his own video to this single of ours and release it himself. And we've already shot our video, but they give Guest our video footage to cut up and add into his video. Liam, my friend, is just like, I'm like, Liam, do what you need to do. You know, like this is your career as well. So Guest takes me into the bedroom, sits me down on the bed and said, Kevin, I'm gonna handcuff you up in chains and you'll pretend you're Liza and I'll paw you. At this point, I look over at Sarah from Universal and she's like that. Get cut, cut. They realise they kind of need to get me out of there. So I get whisked away in this and I'm back up on tour trying to explain to the guys what's just happened. And my pal, my pal Liam shoots this video, and then for the next week gets angry phone calls from David Guest saying, "You're making me look old. I'm not the person who looks old, Liam." All these abusive calls, and then he starts phoning me up and giving me abuse, and it was absolutely bonkers. And ultimately, I think Ireland realised he was just too much to handle, and they weren't. I don't know how close they were getting to Michael Jackson, but it obviously wasn't close enough. So the whole thing backed off, and then I think David Guest. So the video was out there. David Guest released his video of I think Faith Brown's in it. But anyway, I briefly said hello to Candy Stanton during that whole thing.
Wow.
I know it's nuts.
That's quite a lot to take on just hearing that. I can't imagine how you process walking into that room.
No, I've never actually told that story publicly because it's so uncool. David Guest was not cool. Uh, it doesn't do you any favors.
What's
Um,
Candy Staten doing there?
fuck knows. Like, I think they were friends of his. Like Faith Brown's in the video, but I don't remember if Candy. I only ever saw the video once. I think Candy. I don't know if Candy Stan's in it, but Liam hung about with him a lot more and said they were lovely. But and yeah, yeah, it's like you hear those like rock and roll stories of absolute excess. It's just like I walked into the middle of one of those.
That's
You know,
insane.
it's nuts, absolutely bonkers.
Wow. I
Yeah,
can't believe you plucked big star. Thought, right, yeah, this will screw him.
I know.
Let's give him a call.
I know, right
Oh,
back in
that's
my face.
insane.
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Well, look, from that madness, let's take you back home and for this track, Kev, I'm going to ask you to tell me a favourite song from an artist from your home county, please.
So I might have like purposefully misread this to say home country.
Don't worry, mate. You will be the 498th person out of about
Yeah.
520 that has said just that very sentence. So
Excellent.
everyone says it. Don't worry.
So it's I Heard by Young Fathers, who are an Edinburgh band, and as a Glaswegian, my loyalties to Glasgow, but I just think Young Fathers are one of the greatest bands to come out of this country. They blow me away with everything they do, and that's like the first big song of theirs I heard. And again, it's kind of how I don't even know how you describe Young Fathers. They're like it's a bit soulful, a bit hip hop, a bit indie, a bit experimental. But I loved it, and it's one of those things. I'm like traditionally you're kind of singer songwriter guy. You
Yeah.
pick up acoustic guitar and you write the song. But Young Fathers made me think, oh man, like I can't see the strings. I don't know how they're making the puppet
It's
move.
unstructured, isn't it? A lot of it,
Yeah.
but it works.
Yeah, and it's just like it's yeah. I don't know how they do it, and that's what I like about it.
Yeah.
And that led me on to form this other project I'm involved in called Disco Mary, where I'm kind of trying to do non-singer songwriting stuff and stuff that's a bit more beat based. But yeah, I just like I genuinely just think they're one of the most amazing bands I've ever heard. I love them. Um,
And I think all the ways that you sort of was trying to describe them, I think the best way to get young fathers go and watch them live
oh yeah,
because yeah, that'll blow your socks off. That will. Uh,
yeah. It ups the game for everyone, like because. So I went to see them, was it last year, the year before? And it was like, I did feel like I was like 16 again,
yeah.
like energy. And I was just like, and I was at the back because, I don't have the energy for a mosh pit, but I was just like, I will march in your street army. I'm with you guys all the way.
That's fantastic, isn't it? When you get that, as you get older, to still kind of hear something that kicks like it did, when you first heard something when you was younger, and you just think it's that kind of excitement of youth that you're feeling. But to get that as you get older, where you just see something that's so impactful and so exciting that you just think, yeah, right, I'm with you. Like, I love that.
Yeah.
And that doesn't
Yeah.
come along that often, does it?
No, no. It's like the only bands that made me feel like that in the last like 5, 10 years are Young Fathers and Fontaine's DC, where
Yeah.
I'm like, I wish I was 16 again because it would mean even more to me.
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a good shout. Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, it's your last track, Kev.
Yeah.
And this is an opportunity for you to be a tastemaker. And it's a track that you think many people may not know that you would like them to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. So I may have chosen this out of ignorance and people do know it a lot, but it's the impressions in the song is This Is My Country. And I'm just a big evangelist for Curtis Mayfield. I think he is not mentioned as often in the same breath as like Marvin Gaye or Otis Redding or any of the big soul names. And I think he's my favorite. He's a great songwriter. He's funky. And this is his first band, The Impressions. And this is like a brilliant sort of black power, you know, fuck you to the establishment. This is my country too. And I love how political he is, and I always worry that, maybe I should try and get political. But I mean, I'm a like middle class white male. I'm hardly oppressed, you know. Um, but yeah, I discovered this because I worked in there's a record store up here called FOP. I don't know if they had branches down.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah. So I worked in FOP for a while, and you got your staff discount, and there was this double one CD, double album, and it was two Impressions albums. And at that point, I only really knew like moving on up. And I think I maybe just bought Roots, but I knew Curtis was in Impressions, and it was the album "This Is My Country" and the album "The Young Mod's Forgotten Story." And to this day, it's like the best deal I've ever got because it was on sale for like £3 in FOP, and my staff discount got it down to like 150. So I
bingo.
was like, and then I just realized how great every song on both those albums were. And I just like, if you don't know Curtis that well, go and check out Roots, go and check out There's No Place Like America Today. Everyone knows Superfly, but I think that's maybe one of his weaker albums. Um,
Really?
yeah, I mean, I love it, but it just like compared to Roots, which is just my favorite.
Oh,
Yeah.
I disagree.
Oh, really? Oh, wow. Okay, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like what some of my favorite Curtis Mayfield, Eddie, you should have known better. I think he's an absolute masterpiece. And I do think Freddie's Dead is, it's played to death, in all the kind of, soul clubs, but I think it's a masterpiece. But
Yeah.
Roots is great. Tripping Out is my favorite Curtis track.
Oh,
I
yeah,
love
yeah.
Tripping Out. Did you ever hear the track that he done with Bram Van 2000 or 3000, whatever they were called?
Oh, I had no idea he did that.
So he done a track called, oh God, I can't remember what it's called now. But if you put in like in search for Bram Van 2000 or 3000, the one that I'm drinking in LA anyway.
Yeah.
But they done a track with Curtis, and it is fantastic. It's like a pure soul banger, and then it kind of about three-quarters of the way through just kind of does a bit of a dust till dawn and completely changes and becomes a little bit more dancey and housey.
Uh,
It's really but his vocal on it is absolutely fantastic.
I'm going to check that out. I've written that down as you were telling
Yeah,
me.
it's a cracker.
Yeah.
But all right, well look, Kev, we've spoke about so many wonderful records today, but we've not spoke about yours yet. So what's going on? Let's bring us up to speed with everything that's happening in your world, mate.
The sales pitch, excellent. So yeah, I'm just having been in Attic Lights for years, and I've just thought I need to the rest of the band all have, other pursuits, so that we can't do that kind of music anymore. So to scratch that itch, I'm just releasing solo albums, and the new one that's coming out in March is called Wrath of Khan, CAN as opposed to the Star Trek title. And the new single, which is out now, I'm not sure when this podcast is going out, but it is called Everything a Mother Could Want. And it's kind of about being signed to a major label and these sort of expectations that are placed on you where you need to sort of conform, even though like rock and roll's are, supposed to be the rebel music. When
Yeah.
you sign a major label, you sort of realize that it's a business and they want you to conform to a certain extent. So that's the song. It's a sort
I
of
think the
weird.
David Guest story really encapsulated that point.
Yeah, yeah, and then some. Um, but yeah, so I mean, it's like it's a kind of new lease of life for me to an extent. So I've spent I think the last few years I've been working on Disco Mary, which is a project with a publisher. The publisher who the music publisher was with and Attic Lights. We started this up together, and it's my attempt to sort of go down the road of like hints of Young Fathers, but like the Go Team and the Avalanches and that kind of stuff, so I can sort of branch out a little. But at the minute, there's a break in that, so I'm getting to do my true love, singer songwriter guitar stuff. So yeah, that's it. So you can check out Wrath of Khan, the album on March 15th, 2025, and right now I've got some singles out with some little comic strip videos. I kind of relearned to draw because it's murder getting artists,
Yeah.
for comics, and it's really difficult to find people who can commit. So I just thought I'm going to have to do it myself. So I'm sort of combining art and music here by making my own little comic strip videos that are all little kind of true stories. And
Yeah.
the one for this song is about being signed and what it's like when you're signed in your 20s and you're a young idiot, essentially.
And live?
And live, yeah, I'm trying to get some dates in the diary. I'm playing on mid-March in Glasgow. I can't remember the date actually. At the Glad Cafe, and then hopefully get a few dates in the diary. It's difficult. We've got a young 2-year-old, and
Yeah,
I'm loath to put all the burden on my wife. So I'm just going to be playing as and when I can, and when management can get me a gig here and there.
wonderful, wonderful. And if people want to keep up the speed with everything that you're doing, where's the best place to do that, Kev?
Pretty much most of the social channels, it's all just under Kev Sherry stuff. Instagram, uh, TikTok, which I've not really done anything on yet,
Yeah,
and the usual Twitter, X, whatever it's called,
yeah.
and Facebook. I can't. I'm forget. I'm sounding like I'm like 70. What are the names of these social
The
media things?
Facebooks.
Yeah.
Well,
Uh,
if it's cool with you, mate, we'll tag you in everything. So if people aren't following you already, then we'll make it nice and simple for them to do that.
Amazing. Thank you.
Kev, I've had an absolute blast today. I heard things I never thought I was going to hear today, and it was an absolute joy. Thank you so much, mate. Best of luck with the record, and next year let's get this going again and come back on again and do another one because this was wonderful.
Would love to. Would love to. Thanks.
Thanks, mate. I'm going to press stop, but don't go anywhere.